Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld, and this program is about the evolution of consciousness. And that's why I'm doing a show today on this book, Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destinies, with two amazing authors, and I'll show them to you, Mark Victor Hansen and Dwyer Hansen. And of course, everybody knows Mark because you're probably one of the best-selling authors of all time. Chicken Soup to the Soul. I mean, 500 million copies sold there. I mean, Mark, you need no introduction, but I'll do an introduction of Crystal, who is an entrepreneur. She is a life coach. She really understands the science of transformation. And the two of you together have put this book, Ask, which is a whole nother level to your work. It's Chicken Soup for the Soul and all the stories was about telling people. Now you're giving people a tool to find out who they are and what they want. And I think there's something so humble about the word ask. So talk about dreams and destiny in the subtitle a little bit. Mark, do you want to talk about that? And we'll jump in.
Sure, absolutely. We talk about everything. We believe that our book, Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny, says it all, like you said right before we started, is that each of us has a destiny. And evolution is about finding it. And real evolution is about, as far as we're concerned, is the deeper you ask, which is what you're a master tasker on, is it opens up the illumination, the realization, the solution, the answers to the problems. And everybody in lockdown right now needs to be doing self-interrogation. The unexamined life isn't worth living, is what our friend Socrates would have said.
Absolutely. And you, Crystal, why are you so excited about this book and your work here with Mark? Yes, tell me.
So we discovered that, most people have more talent than they'll ever use in 4 lifetimes, but there seemed to be sort of this distinguishing factor between those who actually manifest great success and those who don't. And we boiled it down to this one thing, and it's your ability to ask. And then we discovered, Alan, that there are 3 channels through which to ask, and those are ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. And each one of those channels is equally important, starting with the ask yourself part, which is that reflective journey, which is what we do through the life coaching, transformational coaching process, because you need to understand where you are and then understand where it is you want to be. And the only way you get there is through asking questions.
No, that is beautiful. I want to just start with some of the basics that you mentioned in the book, because it's great to ask, but some people don't even know to ask. They don't even, like, there's that, I think it's at the Seder's on the Passover, where the youngest child doesn't even know how to ask the questions, and you talk about the roadblocks to asking. But some people, yes, unworthiness, doubt, but there's some people who don't even know to ask. Can you talk about that, Crystal?
Yes. So many of us, and it's just, the human condition, because life is just an interesting journey. It's difficult. Sometimes it's tough. It feels overwhelming. Sometimes we feel hopeless. So we get stuck, we get rolled up into that hopelessness and that stuckness. And we think we're just supposed to have a solution suddenly. And if we don't, we just kind of retreat from life or give up. And that's the worst thing we can do, because there's this magical tool that each one of us has inside of us. We were born with it. In fact, children are the most beautiful askers. Children are born, we're all born as master askers, okay? Because we want to know who, what, when, where, why. And we want to ask for more. And that's human spirit. There's nothing wrong with that. That's exactly how we're supposed to be. But that gets shut out of us through, maybe parents, depending on how we grew up. We got shut down. Teachers, don't pipe up until you're asked. And authority at work, the boss knows everything. Don't ask me any questions. Just do what I tell you. or just basic rejection in life. And over time, we all get shut down. We forget who we are. We forget that magic. First of all, the curiosity to look around and ask and wonder about everything. And then secondly, to ask for what it is we're here to do in life. Ask others how they can be a resource to us, or how we could be a resource to them. And most importantly, ask God, what am I here for? Show me the best expression of me.
You're right. Getting in touch with the childish wonder is what makes the world exciting and makes the world worth living, because I love knowledge, and I love talking to people who've investigated knowledge like you guys. So, Mark, why did you want to do this? But don't mind me asking, do you? Why did you want to do this? Because you didn't have to do another book. You didn't have to do anything else ever. Really. So why? What drives you?
Okay, well, I find the question irresistible in the way you answered it with humor. I'm sorry if this didn't be funny to some of the people listening or hanging up by their fingernails, but the bottom line is, if you believe in God, which we do, he created the 28th verse of Genesis is he created you and I in the image and likeness. Now, if we're created, then we got two obligations, two C's. We're here to create and we're here to contribute. And it doesn't say, now go down now and you're 65, retire forever. I have no idea your chronology, but listen, I wrote the book with Art Linkletter when he was 98. So I'm clear that you can keep working forever, as long as you're healthy, happy, and whole. And my goal is to live the 127th options for renewal. And I'd written crazy goals that were impossible. Selling 1 million books, they all thought was idiotic. And then 5 million, 10 million, 15 million a year. And I got all the Guinness Book of Records for those, as I think you know. But now I want to sell 1 billion books. Nobody's ever done it. And it's like the 4-minute mile from my point of view. But it's not for Mark or Crystal. It's for the people we're sourcing and serving. And let me just, if you forgive me for one more thing.
Oh, please. I'm interested in everything you have to say. So I'm going to keep asking, but go, keep talking.
No, but I got goosebumps to tell you this. The other day, we've gotten, remember, this came during the close down. Our publisher said, well, you shouldn't do it now. Let's push back. I said, no. I take adversity turned into advantage. We've so far gotten 121 letters in one day. And Crystal said, look, I'm really busy, but I want to answer them. But what happened, honey? Tell.
Well, I was just one of those days I was going through and I'm like, I don't have time to look through all these letters. But, I started looking and I got sucked into it, Ellen, because people are saying, thank you so much for writing this book. This is exactly what I needed at this time. I was really stuck. I was starting to get so depressed. I'm so hopeless. And so I ended up getting pulled into those letters, because that's the magic for us. When you can help one person just have a new beginning, give them one tool that will help them get out of their stuckness, get out of their depression, because every person is important to this world. Every person's light needs to shine. And so we want everybody to get back in touch with that childlike wonder that is inside of us, each one of us, and reawaken our ability to ask, because it really is, as you start to do it more and more, it's sort of an art and a science, and you start to do it so well, it becomes magical in the way that it will transform your life, because you ask a question, you get a solution. Suddenly you ask another question, you get an illumination. You ask more and more, you start to feel a plan forming, or you get an idea. That idea spurs you to call someone and ask them something. And in this way, we say asking is literally a language that binds all of us together if we're willing to do it.
No, that's really, you're inspiring me as you're talking, both of you.
It's about time.
But I've always asked a lot of questions, and some people say, why are you asking so many questions? And then I became an interviewer, so I had an excuse to ask questions. But it is the basic core of who we are as human beings, to find out why, to wonder. Look, humans are all over the planet because we ask, what's over that mountain? What's in that next valley? We are human species because we want to know why. It separates us from the other being. So you've created a roadmap to asking, which is so, I think it's a real another spiral on the whole chicken soup thing. It really seems like you are now tapping into the deeper level of beingness. So talk about destiny, Mark. What does that mean? Because you had a destiny, you still have a destiny, or have you not reached your destiny?
Oh, no. By the way, if you're alive, by the way, I'm going to do this positionally, and because you've interviewed everybody that's anybody, I'd love you to argue against it if you can, but I don't think you can. Is I think as long as we're alive, we have a destiny. Now, there are a lot of people, chronologically over 55 or 65 that are retired and they're living in leisure world, or they're living in the villages. And I'm not beating on them. All I'm saying is that when Art Linkletter and I went and talked to tens of thousands of people a night, because we wrote that book together, how to make the rest of your life the best of your life, a lot of them woke up because we were asking them, wait, why are you doing this? Because we're saying, don't retire from something to nothing, retire from something to better, put on new tires and go in a new direction. People that don't do anything get bored, get overweight, become alcoholics, and become dysfunctional. At least that's my experience. Now, if you've got a different experience, I'm willing to listen to yours.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I haven't even started, I mean, really, I'm getting.
People need to hear that.
No, I feel that way. I think it's taken me this long to figure out what I want to do, and now it's like I feel like I'm just starting on an adventure, and it's so exciting. The world, even with the crisis we're in, I think actually gives us more opportunity because the world has suddenly changed, right? I mean, Crystal, how did that affect you and what you were doing and what you wanted to ask the world?
Well, for us, I mean, just to what you said, I think this crisis is causing us to ask more questions, okay? And it's refining even the way we do business. Now, some of it's really scary and difficult for people, but probably some of these questions should have been asked before. This really forced us into, can we be more efficient in our business? Do we need to waste all of these resources having huge buildings and huge, all of this stuff? What is excess and what is necessary? What is excess and what is efficiency? So that, I mean, we want everybody to have a wonderful experience. I love going out shopping at places and things like that. And I think there'll be some kind of blend of that. I don't want all the stores and shops to go away, but I think we will look at everything in a different way to make things more efficient and just work better, because technology has accelerated so quickly and we probably hadn't quite kept up with it. And businesses are reinventing all over the place. We're reading articles every day, and it's kind of exciting and interesting. I think new industries will spring from this. But for us personally, Alan, we work out of we have our home offices. Mark and I each have an office. So we did our work there. We, in the past, I would say 5-6 years, have been outsourcing so much of our work anyway, because now you have these specialty, boutique industries that specialize and they do so well in what they do. And that's the trend. So you don't need a big staff. You pick these industries, these outsourced places that do whatever that thing is that you need done really, really well. And it works very well. So I think that's just going to expand. I think we'll get through all of this.
Yeah.
And a lot of jobs will be created. I mean, we are going to be creating more manufacturing jobs at home where we can keep some of our, key sources like medical sources safer and more abundant for ourselves at home. So that'll create some more jobs and more industry. So we're super optimistic about the future.
Well, I think it also asks us to ask the question, how can we be a more compassionate society? How can we decentralize out of like living on top of each other, live in communities that is part of our natural evolution? So this is the asking of what we can do now in this situation makes your book so important at this time. So, I mean, go ahead, Mark. Would you? Yes, please.
Boy, you are so sensitive. I'm telling you. And before we began, everybody, we were chatting with Alan, who's like a lifelong friend, and it is the first time we really met. And because I'd been in graduate school 50 years ago at Bucky Fuller, and he created floating cities that floated not only on the water off Tokyo, but floated in the air and said, look, there's not going to be any reason because we're going to have education automation. He was a visionary futurist and 15 doctorates at Harvard and
The best. He
of
was the best, Bucky Fuller. I mean,
and what you and I were saying is that people are going to go more rural, and what Crystal's saying is correct. We're going to decentralize. We're going to have robots and cobots. And, you know, in the past, I've had 387 employees, around $100 million enterprise called Enlightened Millionaire Institute with two other guys. So, but we had a lot of employees. And now we're seeing all these guys are decentralizing, and all of them are doing stuff. And I'm not saying everybody can do that. We're going to have garbage people. We're going to have hands-on teachers, but there's going to be some brand new ways to do that that are exquisitely exciting. And yet we've got the bigger picture you're doing here is that what Bucky said is, how do you make the world work for 100% of humanity? And he sort of made 7 of us that were traveling with him ex officio ambassadors of doing it. And I see the way to do that. And I'll just give one example. There's a company in Michigan called QCI, run by a genius named Dean Rose. And Dean Rose spent 20 years and $300 million to figure out how to take all garbage and put it back into resource. Because I wrote 10 life commandments of what I'd do in my lifetime. Take all bad resources, make them positive resources again. And he's taking glass, putting it back to glass, metal to metal, water to water, plastic to plastic. And we have 10,000 landfills now. Talk about consciousness. That will kill us if we don't clean it up. He's figured out how to clean it up, but here's the bottom line. He needs 22 million employees today to get this done, assuming everybody in every state and every governor wakes up. And by the way, that's a whole different issue of consciousness. There are a lot of people that have amnesia at levels that are astounding to me, that they got on blinders. And one of the things we pray for every day is that we get rid of the blinders and have people wake up so we get along. And back to what you said, become kind and compassionate.
Yeah.
Well, I think just living in communities, when we decentralize, when we have a core number of people in a small community, I know this is a little off topic, but then everyone is taken care of. There's nobody homeless. There's no one starving. We care more. It takes a village to care for a village. I think that's a more humane way of being.
I agree, Alan. And I think we are asking those questions. You know, this idea of living stacked in this, you know, big cities, there's so much chaos and people on the streets. This should not be happening. And back to, you know, I grew up in a community. My mom grew these big, gigantic organic gardens, and we did juice cleanses. My mother was very much ahead of her time in that way. She was so much.
Where
I grew up in the Intermountain region, in the Northwest. So yeah, it was just a beautiful way to grow up. I grew up with 9 children in my family, and we all had to work for the success. I mean, my dad was a successful attorney, but my mom intuitively knew, they both knew, we needed to understand the hard work and working, you know, close to nature. And so I couldn't go play with my friends and get on my bike until I worked in the garden, weeded, picked, we canned, we did all kinds of things. But that feeling, that community feeling where you know your neighbors, you take care of each other. If someone needs food for a while or whatever, I mean, people are so isolated and lonely. We have a section in the book, it's called Too Isolated to Ask. Wow. And that's the danger. We've become this society that's, we're so connected on social media, but we're not connected really as human beings, heart to heart, shoulder to shoulder. I mean, why can't we live cooperatively together and maybe not have these big fancy houses? Mark and I envision all the time these, you know, just really small, simple houses where, imagine if we all co-op together and just grow safe food and things like that. No one would ever go hungry because they know how to do this.
We have the technology to stay connected. This is why only at this time in our history can we actually live in these more compassionate, holistic societies where we can care about our village, let's say, and the state and the world, and be like networks of compassion. Let's start that, guys.
I love it. I love it. You know, people should feel loved and taken care of and have
needed.
Healthy food and needed. That's the thing. Everybody has a job, because if you're working cooperatively, there's always some good work for someone to do.
Absolutely. But I just want to go back to the book. I mean, because I think all this asking comes out of why can't we have a more compassionate holistic society. I mean, we can ask those questions and now we're in a position to make changes. But as far as like the individual asking, you talk about relationships a little bit. I wanted to focus on that because I'm asking you, what does make that good relation? How do you find the best partner? How do you know it's the best partner for you? I mean, I'm asking those questions because you two have found something and you feel so aligned in your purpose, which is, I think, makes a good relationship.
We agree on all points. So back after each of us had been divorced, and I wrote, after I went through a horrific divorce, I wrote 267 things I needed: the qualities, the values, the virtues, the characteristics in my ideal other person, thinking that it was impossible, but little simple things like both of us are going to probably have kids. The kids have got to get along because otherwise you can't. She's got to have her own business and she's got to love travel because at the time, remember, for 44 years, I've traveled 250,000 miles a year, talked in 80 countries to 7 million people. So I've been a little bit busy. You don't sell those books without traveling at one time. Now we're traveling by podcast. But the point is, I wrote down what I wanted. When we met, it was like, because the goal for most of us in relationship, at least pair bonded relationship, is a soulmate, but there's a higher level of that David Hawkins would have talked about, which we are, which is twin flame. We reflect each other all at every level. And our thinking is in alignment, and our thinking is not only because we've taken care of ourselves, then the next level back to the village, you take care of your family, then the city, then the county, then the community, and then the world.
Right. Did you have something to say, Crystal, please?
Yeah, I was just going to say about the relationship thing. I think Mark and I both had a high level of awareness of, we both are willing to give a lot in a relationship and to the world, but we felt sort of a void, each of us, in our previous relationships. That's not to put those people down. It's just what it is. You're just not completely compatible. It worked in some areas, but not in others. And so you sort of have this void or this hole in the middle of your relationship. So we had this level of awareness. I think we knew what we wanted and we knew what was missing. And you only get to that by asking yourself those questions. And when we do the part, the ask yourself part, we say, the first critical phase of that is, where am I right now? So if apply that to a relationship, what's working?
To ask, you're saying, ask,
yes.
Ask yourself, where are you?
Yes, you have to. That's the first critical phase. You have to understand, where am I right now? What's going on right now with this life of mine? What do I like? Whether it's a relationship, job, anything. What is working? What's not working? What am I enjoying? What am I detesting? What feels horrible to me? What feels amazing? And then the second phase of that, Alan, would be,
I just want to say something. If you don't ask yourself those questions and you just push that aside, there's no chance of change. I mean, I think that's what you're saying.
There's no chance of change. And go back to the 7 roadblocks to asking. You're going to be in complete pattern paralysis, where you just keep doing the same thing over and over again in your life, whether it's work, relationships, whatever, the purpose of your life in general. And it doesn't ever feel good. And you never stop to ask why. So that first phase is, where am I now? The second critical phase is, where do I want to be? Most people never explore that. Now, and they don't take the time with themselves in that awareness to say, what do I really want? What's really feels good to me? What's magical? What would I be doing if I had everything I wanted? If I were a super success, who would I be talking to every day? What would I be spending my time on? How would that feel? Because if we ask those questions, we start to create an architecture for what we want. That's the only way to create that template.
But don't you, like in the relationships you talked about, do you have to give up what you have? So you had to let go of the relation, even though there was comfortable, I'm sure, but it wasn't home. But I mean, I think the hardest thing is for people to give up what's not working and let go and float a little bit in order to get what they want. How do you get people to give up something that's even not working? I mean, because people won't do that normally.
It's very hard because, especially like in relationships, you have so many factors. You have children, you have a community. Like my ex-husband and I had a community. We were kind of influencers in our community. Mark, of course, with his
Yeah.
ex-wife. So there's an expectation of everybody. So you feel this pressure. You feel like you're dissolving an institution upon which so many people rely. And that's it can feel like a heavy burden.
What
But
advice do you have for people? Yeah.
yeah, but we had, I think for me, it came down to, really, I got really serious with God. And I said, okay, God, if there's some reason you want me to stay in this relationship, then will you please show me a sign? Because this is just breaking me down. It's not letting me express who I am. And, it's interesting when you ask God, this perfect universe that is set up, those answers will come to you. They came to me so clearly from these things that happened. And I was just like, oh my goodness. I mean, our coming together was one of those miraculous things. So when you ask God, the universe is set up to answer you. And it's such a beautiful thing. And it was scary to let go, because at least it was something you knew, when you're in a relationship or in a job, a job you're comfortable, but you don't like it. But I said, do I really want to live like this forever with this emptiness inside? And I knew that if I did, I wouldn't be healthy. And I couldn't fully be me. And so I took that risk. Sometimes we have to ask that question of ourselves and say, am I willing to let this go for the possibility, the hope? Because I said to myself, I might be sitting on the couch for the rest of my life by myself.
I don't think so.
If you look at her, you can see that isn't going to happen.
If you didn't meet Mark, I would have introduced myself.
Oh, thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. That's really
Bless your heart.
sweet. That's so sweet.
So let me go ahead.
Tell me, Mark. No, tell me your version of that. Yeah.
So her mother sends her to this talk because she's just written a book and says, and Mark Victor Hansen is going to be there. Well, there was a gazillion people at this thing called Author 101 in LA. And I saw her in the audience. I asked somebody, is she married? And said, no, she just got divorced. I thought, oh, thank God. And that night we're up in a VIP room and I'm thronged with people and it's late at night. And I see her over there with a lady and she wasn't drinking because she wanted to figure out how to talk to all the agents who we brought together. The woman, it turned out we meet her later, from El Salvador, wipes out red wine all over her white pants. And heroically, I run over and say, I know where the club soda is.
He did. He rescued me from the wine.
And then I said, hey, look.
Impression.
Go ahead, Alan.
I said it's a good way to make an impression there. So then what happened, Mark?
I said, look, are you hungry? She said, I am. I said, I can't stay here because there's 1,000 people that want 2 minutes of my time, and that isn't going to work. So with your permission, can I take you to dinner offshore? We get to this restaurant that's a Hollywood restaurant, and there's a long line. $100 bill will not get you in. So we walk up, and the guy looks at her, and because of her pulchritudinous just emanating out of every pore of her being, the guy says, okay, I give up. Who is she? And remember, I'm teaching Ask. I said, you don't recognize her? Guys, now you can see the guy going through People magazine, InStyle magazine as fast as he can, Vogue, and it's not connecting. He said, okay, I give up. Who is she? I said, now remember, we're both Danish. So I was joking, and I said, she's the Queen of Denmark. He starts it by saying, no, she's not. Oh my God, she is. Who are you? Back to questions. I said, who travels with the Queen? He said, you're the king. Hold on one second. We got a table for you. And we had a table that quick. I mean, that's what I mean is our relationship. I believe this thing about, you asked 10 questions ago about destiny, is that we have a destiny. Our destiny is to have a magnificent life, a fulfilled life, a joyous life, a life of contribution, a life of what you're teaching here with all the greats that you've interviewed. And I appreciate all of them. You know, there's a lot of them are friends, of course. And the point is, we're here to expand our mind and our thinking. Like Crystal said, we all have 4 times more genius, talent, ability, skills, but we're back to your question about naivete, which is one of the 7 roadblocks, is that people block it and get stuck and stopped and stifled and thwart themselves. How's that for good words?
No, that's great. But the other question I was asking is, how did you let go of what you had, Mark, like your marriage, and float in the unknown, and maybe you didn't, and find what you were really looking for? Of course, you're an expert on finding what you're looking for, but how did you do that? Let go of the known.
Like everybody out there, I was totally scared because I was making a lot of money and I didn't realize how much pain and suffering I was going through. And luckily I was talking to a guy that helped me in speaking, a lovely guy gone now, Chip Collins. And I was talking to him regularly, and I said, I just don't think, look, there's too much pain here. I got to extricate myself. And everyone said, well, you can't leave that much wealth because you're going to get cut in half. Well, I got cut a lot more. But the point is that I did it, and it was the best thing ever because this is what I got.
But you took a chance. You asked yourself, what would it be like if I went for what I really wanted? Is that the question? Because you have to ask the right question to get the right answer.
Exactly. And I'd learned to ask the wrong question back in '74 when I went bankrupt. So, oh my God, what if I go bankrupt? And I figured out how to go bankrupt because the subconscious can't take a joke.
That's funny. You didn't write a book about that though, did you? I mean, no.
But about going bankrupt?
No, about, taking a joke, the subconscious and the playfulness of what creation gives us when we ask sometimes. It may not give us directly what we want, but eventually it'll get us there, Yeah,
and to answer your question at a bigger level, the answer is yes. I've written 7 major money books like 1 Minute Millionaire, Cash in a Flash, Cracking the Millionaire Code. And then for kids, I did The Richest Kids in America because I think every kid's got to learn to be an entrepreneur. And that's what you're really, the touchstone that you were asking about a second ago is an entrepreneur is a problem solver for a profit, is the way I've written it and defined it and created it. And I think all these kids that aren't going to have jobs are not going to get to go back to college. Now, we could argue that, and I'm open to any argument you want. I mean, I got a great education, so did she. But the fact of the matter is, school is sort of irrelevant at this time because they're saying we're going to charge you 100% to get an electronic education that you can get for free online. Do I believe we need more STEMs, science? And by the way, we're on the board of Back to Space. So what STEM is, science, education, technology. Anyhow, the point is, and somebody may not, that's why I was defining it quickly, is that other than STEM, you can learn almost anything online and then go process and be an apprentice is what I think we're going to have to go back to the old apprentice. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Crystal, what were you saying?
I was just thinking, what this has brought about, because I think for quite some time, we've really pushed this narrative that, to kids that you have to get this 4-year degree or you'll be nothing. Well, what happened over these past 20 years or, especially the last 15, I would say, kids put it all on the line. They spent their parents' savings. They went into debt. They got these supposed wonderful degrees. They come out and they couldn't get this promised job. It just wasn't there for them. And so a college degree in itself is not that useful all the time. And now, we run into it before COVID, especially, but Mark will always say to the waiter or the bartender, hey, are you still in school? Oftentimes we get this bright, wonderful young woman or young man who says, oh, I've been out of college for 4 years. They are tending bar and waiting tables. So I feel like we've done a big disservice because we haven't really promoted the trades, things things we can do with our hands, all of these things that are actually so useful to everyday living that so many people could make a tremendous living at. And so much more than they could have with this college degree. So I'm hoping that we really relook at, take a look, do we really need to send these kids to university for 4 years? University costs have gone up 7 times faster than inflation. Now, what's that about? To me,
you're saying something radical here, Crystal, and I appreciate it. I mean, I like learning, so I didn't know what I wanted to learn, so I could have taken time off until I was forced to go to, not forced, but he said, high school, college, it's just, you don't even, I should have asked, well, maybe not, but but what you're talking about here in these last couple of questions, like, Mark, this is not just a money book for you. This is a whole other level of consciousness that this book is about. So it's like beyond making money, because once you do that, then there's consciousness. Talk about that aspect of the book, because you've gone deeper here, I think, and have stimulated people's humanity.
By the way, you're talking about the evolution of consciousness, and that's what we were doing, because we've been to all these countries, we've met all these people, and as Crystal said, they're all great people, but they don't learn how to become what we call master askers. And so what we did is we wrote everything that we could think about asking, and it was true to us. And then we said, well, wait a second, let's do the research. So we did the Harvard and the MIT, Stanford, and all of it corroborated what we were saying. You know, if somebody asked for a date, they're going to be twice as liked, all that stuff. Then what we did is we interviewed 26 masters of asking. And with your permission, I'd like to quickly tell you, Jim Stovall had written a book called The Ultimate Gift. Here's a guy who wanted to play NFL, went blind, wrote this book. I was so blown away. I said, it's got to be a movie. And then we interviewed him for our book. And he's such a genius. And he says, now I write books that I can't read and I make movies that I can't see. I share that because he also, when he was blind and upset and pissed off and locked in a 9x12 room with a radio and a television and a telephone, his parents said, go to the blind meeting, sits next to this woman. And this is a question that leverages everybody. He said, I used to love to watch TV and watch somebody throw a right hook, but I can't see. He said, somebody ought to have narrative TV. So she said, asked, how can we fix it? They created narrative TV, and 14 million people pay $10 a month for narrative TV. You never heard of it because you're sighted. What I'm saying is that everybody out there is here to fix a problem by learning how to ask, what can I fix, and fix it for a profit. This is simple stuff. This isn't, and it doesn't matter if you have a college or not college. Everyone has 50,000 ideas a day. I've already had 4 or 5 ideas today that I would love to turn into profit. And I just write them all down because sooner or later I can shuffle them off on a staff member or outsource them and get them done.
But it's not just profit. I think it's also being more compassionate, bringing the idea of who we are as conscious, evolving beings. I think asking is about evolution. That's why I think it's so valuable about what you've done. So
It is.
Yeah, go ahead, Crystal. Talk about.
There's a beautiful story in the book that really is such an example, great example of that. These 2 little starlets back during World War II were commissioned by the USO. Sorry, I should say USO. USO. I like UFOs. The USO to go over and entertain the troops. Okay, so these young women were beautiful. Their careers, one of them, Yvonne Feddersen, was literally on every single daytime television show at the time. She was dating Elvis Presley. So they're so excited because they get to go over on generals. They were given the status of general. They get to go first class and they leave Hollywood and they go over to Japan, well, to entertain the troops. While they're there, this typhoon comes in and they got restless. And talk about universe talking to you, and if you're listening, right? So they didn't know why. They just wanted to get out of the hotel, and they were told not to leave the hotel because it was dangerous. But they sneaked out and went for a walk and started walking down the street. They didn't really know what they were doing or where they were going. Suddenly, as they turn a corner and they look up ahead, and there's this group of 11 little children huddling together, almost with no clothes on, no shoes, shivering, like out on the streets by themselves. They walk up and said, and pull their coats off and wrapped around them and said, where's your mama-san, papa-san? And they said, no, mama-san, no papa-san. They realized these were half American, half Asian kids. They were mixed blood children, and they had no parents, no place to go, and they had been put out on the street because at that time there were so many deaths that the orphanages were filling up in Japan, and there was a lot of racism in Japan. If you were a half-breed, what they called it, then you weren't as valuable. So these poor little children, and they just said, we asked ourselves, God, what do you want us to do with these? They said, we knew the answer was, you need to take them in. They took them back to their hotel, bathed them, put them in like clothes and shirts that they had. The maids sneaked food in. And then they asked, okay, what are we going to do now? We cannot. They called the general, explained what happened. He said, you need to put those kids back on the street. You cannot be taking these in. This is a catastrophe for us. They said, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. You need to help us. Where can we take them? So they spent the next day, they had it off. They went to every single orphanage in town. No one would take those kids, except the final one. They went to Mama Kin. She didn't have a door. The windows were broken out. It was freezing there. All the kids were huddled around a hibachi. She took the mixed race kids, but she said, you can see I don't have any more room and we're freezing in here. We don't have enough food. They said, if you promise to take these kids, we promise you, we will fix this building. We'll build on for you and we will send you food for the rest of their lives and until they're, you know, older. So they committed to that. The next day they got their troops, they passed around the hat and said, these are probably your kids. And we expect you to step up, put your money in the hat, and we want you to come with us and rebuild the doors and windows. They created the first Orphanages International and came back to the United States, kept sending money, and that grew. They ended up doing more and more orphanages. When Vietnam broke out, they asked them to come to Vietnam and do the same thing. And thousands of babies were about to be killed in Vietnam. They orchestrated the biggest release of babies. It was called Operation Baby Airlift. They brought thousands of babies over, got them immediately adopted by couples from Canada and the United States. And from there, Nancy Reagan asked them to take on the problem of child abuse in America. Wow. They started childhelp.org, which now has helped over 10.5 million children get out of child abuse. And talk about asking a question. They gave up their fancy careers. That's a big, you know, when you ask yourself these questions, like you said, Alan, it's not about money. It's about looking around, looking at this world and asking, what is the highest use of my time and energy? What is my greatest expression on this earth for which I can serve and make this a better experience for everybody?
And we're co-chair people of Child Help, of course, .org, trying to get this done because we have so many kids in America that are abused, neglected, and sex trafficked, and it's just not okay. And we got 4 installations around the country, one out by you guys in the east. We've got them in California and Arizona. The point is, somebody's got to do something. They decided they were somebody, and then they, the reason I sell more books than anybody is I wrote a book called A Miracle of Tithing, meaning the miracle of giving, and I say there's thinking, time, talent, and treasures. And we tithed in every book, but I tithed to them, and then we met them. They live here in Arizona, and we just fell in love with them again. Yeah. And they're like 87 each. Amazing. and in great shape. And they said, you got to help us again. And I go, we're busy. We're up to here. But remember what I said, you got to create and contribute. And we're creating stuff that they didn't know how to create.
Right. And I think that's what's so important about this book. You're helping people realize it's okay to wonder. It's okay to ask. It's okay to do something better than what already exists. We are here to change the world and make it better for everyone. And we have this incredible resource. We have this incredible facility of the mind to wonder about the planet. Wonder, so it goes back to the John F. Kennedy thing. Don't ask what the country can do for you. Ask what you can do. But that was a major step, I think, in transformation and coming together as a compassionate society. So you help people with this book to ask what is possible for them, for the world. Yeah, go ahead, Mark. Tell me what you were going to say.
So the question you just did with John Kennedy, which is a question that inspired me at the depth of my being, and that's why I was a student ambassador to India and all that. But we ask all the biggest questions that we knew of ever asked, and we're going to continue this 2 ways. We want everyone to get our book at Amazon, because that's basically all that's open. And then we want them to go to askthebookclub.com, and we're doing a free book club. We think it'll be the world's largest virtual free book club, askthebookclub.com. And then what happens is at the very end, we ask all these giant questions, like Dr. Peter Diamandis, who's a good acquaintance, says, what are you personally going to do to positively affect 1 billion people during the next decade? This is great questions, and it's the evolution of consciousness, because what it does opens up your brain cells to say, hey, wait a second. I am, back to what you and I are saying, there's a formal education, and then there's a self-help action education, the kind of books that I've written, 309 bestsellers, and I think they're sort of equally important, and maybe the leverage that we need these days to get people there where they want to go. And then YouTube shows and radio shows like yours, force people to think, because they go, by the way, no offense intended, but some of your people, they say, I don't like him or her or them or Mark and Crystal, and that's okay. The point is does it wake up their evolution? Evolution means to grow, to be excited, to be changed, to go forward.
No, this is what we're at. The most vital resource we have is our creativity and our ability to wonder. And I think the artist, I'm writing a book called The Artist's Role in Creating New Realities, because this comes down to having a new vision of the possible that has always changed the world. And you're helping people get in touch with their vision of the possible. So I also want to talk about miracles a little, because people think, oh, miracles, how can that happen? But miracles do happen. They've happened for you too. And so talk a little bit about that, Crystal. Yes.
I'll let her answer the miracle thing, but I did write a book just now, a while back, 3 years ago, called The Miracles in You, because each of us is here to create miracles. And sometimes we're here to be somebody else's miracle with just a word of encouragement, a nice thing, a statement, a hope, a prayer, or a future.
Right. And miracles are so real, and they're happening all the time if we're just awake and alive. And that's why we want to tell everybody to use this tool of asking to come alive. We need everybody to come alive, so your life and your presence is available to this beautiful miracle of life. And I could talk about so many miracles that happen.
Give us one miracle, Crystal, because I think hearing it helps people realize it's true.
Oh gosh. I have these really profound dreams for which I'm so thankful. And I think I have these vivid dreams because I'm aware enough to believe in the magic of what's going on around us. There is so much that we don't see, I promise you. And if you just even suspend your disbelief, you'll start to see magical things that happen that couldn't possibly happen. You couldn't have made this happen. But when I was after my divorce, I really didn't know what to expect, and I wasn't really ready to date. And when I went to that event with Mark and we connected, for whatever reason, I won. We put our names in a hat or whatever. There was a drawing for who won their Get Your Title Picked with Mark. And so, and Mark and I had already gone out to dinner.
I think Mark actually won that one.
I never heard that before. That's good, Alan.
So it was so funny because after our dinner together, I felt this shift, and I thought, I don't know what is happening, but I clearly felt like something was happening. My life was shifting, and I just continued to stay open to it. Show me, God, because I wasn't looking to be in a relationship. And, but I did need to follow up with Mark. I was supposed to call him. So I called and left a message, could we talk about my title? Of course, he had already taken my number. So he got right back to me and left a message. And this was just a few days after I got home from the event. And I went to sleep that night and I dreamed this. Now, remember, I'm just thinking, I don't know if I'm ever going to get married again. Don't know if I want a relationship. I dreamed that Mark and I were walking side by side on a starry night, and there were like little cabins alongside this simple dirt road. And the feeling was we had just come from some event that the two of us had put on together. And we're walking along, and we come to this cabin that was his cabin where he was staying. And lots of people were running up to us along the way saying, Mark and Crystal, can you help me with this? Can I ask you a question? And we were so relieved when all the crowd fell away and we just got to the cabin door. And the feeling was inside that we just wanted to go inside the cabin. I don't mean for this to sound sexual, because it really wasn't.
Oh, I got it.
We just had this deep need to bond at the deepest spiritual level, at a mental level, at all levels of being. It was the craziest feeling that we had to bond in this way. And as we're thinking that and the crowd's falling away, we both had this awareness of that. I look up in the sky and I see this pink, beautiful, bright pink star shining and speeding toward us.
Wow.
And so as it speeds toward us, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And suddenly it's standing in front of us. Bigger than both of us. And Mark actually he jumped back, and I grabbed his hand and I said, because I'm looking into the center of this pink glowing light, and it actually had a heartbeat, and I could feel the intelligence inside it. And I grabbed Mark's hand and said, don't worry, don't be scared. It's just here to collect information about what it is about you and I that can change the world together.
Oh, that was your dream. That was
my dream.
I love it. That is
I
amazing.
woke up and I go, what is this dream I just had about this guy that I just met? I didn't know if we were ever going to have a date. I didn't, because I told him I wasn't dating till the end of the summer. And I thought, I'm not sure if I would date someone older than, Mark's older than I am, but that wasn't on my mind. So to have this miraculous dream, this knowing, it was the feelings and the knowing were so intense and so vivid. And here we are doing just that.
And so together and aligned in your vision. But just, I know we're running out of time, although we can talk for hours because I haven't even began to ask the questions. But
you'll have to have us back.
I was thinking maybe we could do this next week, but before, there's one.
She's talking about love.
She felt the love. She had to join in.
This is our dog London, our grand dog actually. We're grand babysitting.
But I do want to ask you about the dream part connecting to destiny, because how do we know when our dreams are our destiny? What is the sense that comes when you have a dream and say, oh, that's just fantasy. And then you have the dream where that's what I want to do. That's my essence is calling me.
Right. You can feel it so deeply. There's a different quality to those dreams. There's a deep spiritual knowing. It's almost something is happening without a doubt. And you may not even know exactly, but you really need to just continue to be awake to that and ask God, ask the universe, ask for those answers, ask for the revelations. You will get them and you will just know it's a deeper feeling. It's not just oh, I wish that this would happen. It's so real. It's almost like you become more sober about it because it's so real.
Well, let me ask Mark, what's next then? You've accomplished so much. You've created a fortune. You have a great partner. You've helped probably millions, hundreds of millions of people have had a better life. What else is there? What else would you want to do?
We literally have to figure out how to make the world work for 100% of humanity. And I think it's only, Bucky's great line was, out of emergency causes emergence. And back to what we've said, like the new cities, remote cities, and Crystal's talked about, we're going to have new supply lines and we're going to figure out how to do this. And we own an energy company called Natural Power Concepts where we can do pop-up windmills for local urban wind. And we got pulsating waves so we can have ample water, ample energy, ample fish, everything. For the first time, we could literally use technology to have abundance. So we do the evolution of mind and spirit and body. I think that's where we got to go.
But yes, and I think so. What's your vision for the evolution of spirit and mind? How do you get there with your own sense of being?
Great question. So I'm going to do it wrap it in a bit of a quick story, and that is, we're falling in love, and we're at Mother's Market in Costa Mesa, California. There's a man of the cloth sitting next to us, obviously collared and all that, and he sees we're indefatigably in love and says, "Can I ask you guys a question?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you want to know what keeps marriages together?" I go, "Didn't know that question was coming, but yeah, I'd like to know that." He said, "Well, I'm the head of Billy Graham Ministries," and I guess he was like 90 years old. And he said, "One thing only." And I said, we all saw City Slickers. It's one thing. And I said, what is that? He said, husband and wives have to pray out loud together. Now, we pray together and meditate for an hour every morning when we wake up. Now we pray out loud before we go to sleep. And previously, Crystal prayed at church, prayed with her family at Thanksgiving and stuff, but never out loud with a spouse. And she said, "I don't know if I'm comfortable with that," but we did it and we do it now every day. So it's evolution of individual spirit where you've got to ask yourself all these propelling, evolutionary, forward motioning, life generating, spirit expanding questions, because we're here to source and serve as much as we can. If you're alive, you've got a destiny to source and serve others, it seems to me, us.
Count your blessing. I mean, do you, particularly Marcus, maybe Crystal too, do you ever sit back and say, okay, like you ever give yourself the peace that you've accomplished, the destinies that and just let yourself have it. You relax into your own creation. Because I ask people that because they're very driven. Our friend Tom doesn't, he's so, I said, Tom, take a breath and just sit back. Do you give yourself permission to just say, okay?
We are masters at that. We meditate together and chill our jets, and we actually shut down business and don't take telephone calls, shut off the computer, and don't listen to anyone other than if our kids or grandkids call.
Right, Alan. We take the time to kind of segment those moments. We understand, because when we're not doing that, we feel more chaotic when we don't come back and just, sit in awareness of everything that we have. And what you were talking about, the gratitude thing, is so important, because looking around your life and being grateful for every single little thing is exactly the first step and the ongoing way to create ever greater abundance and more goodness in your life. And the reason it's so important, if you don't have gratitude, it means you're not aware. Gratitude is just an awareness of these beautiful things. Like, I'm looking at this tree and I always admire how the leaves have such a beautiful, intricate, lacy pattern. I mean, there's so much beauty around us. And if you have to dip into it constantly and notice the beauty around you, notice the beauty about yourself, notice the beauty of your eyes, because you can look through and see the wonder of this world. Your hands, your feet, the way everything works is so beautiful and so miraculous. I think so often people start to judge themselves by what they've done, what their accomplishments are. That is not, we need to get out of that. You're here to, yes, we're going to do a lot of things, but we're here to express. And when you understand that you have to start with this gratitude, recognizing everything good suddenly allows you to become a magnet for more good, more good, more good.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most spiritual sort of summation we can have, is the gratitude for just being and having this mind that then can wonder about this being and build city and places and things and be there for each other. This is the miracle of being human. And so you've done a beautiful job together, separately. I'm grateful for having this time, I know, but I would like to do this again, because there's still a lot more to, can we do you want to do this next week, or we'll talk about it?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Reach out to us. Let's put it on our schedules, because I think we should. I think it's helpful for people to hear and see and know. Let's be a resource to people however we can.
Well, you're helping me, so that's helping me. No, because not everyone thinks on the level that you think. They just put up with their stuff. I mean, I'm not around those people that much, but still, there are people like my mother. Would you talk to my mother? No.
Of course.
Take my mother, please.
I'll
Right?
mom next to you next time.
By the way, give us the 3 takeaways that you got out of this discussion, if you could, please. And we do have to wrap it up.
Were a little surprising that you're a lot more radical in your worldview than I expected. That's a takeaway about you guys, and that there's a compassionate part to asking, because we're asking to help not just ourselves, but it has this ripple effect. So that's came to me. And the idea that it can be different no matter what roadblocks we may think we have to having a better life. If we just sit with how things are, be honest with yourself, and then you ask, how can it be different? Then we've created a little bit of a miracle. So thank you. Mark.
You're welcome. We're so thankful to have been here. Thank you, Alan.
Say about that, Mark, you were going to respond.
You are so sensitive. It's amazing to me. But all the questions of Christ were compassionate. He who has not sinned cast the first stone. How do you do more compassion than that? But I can go through all of it. And 57 times, he said, the guy comes to him for healing. He said, do you want to be healed? Not because if they didn't want to, because a lot of people get payoff in secondary infections and staying sick and staying by the water rather than getting well. So evolution is about asking questions. That's what I want to get in. And we're so thankful that we think this book is divinely inspired because you asked. So I'm just telling you what my belief is.
No, I like to ask, and there's a lot more I want to ask, but I've enjoyed this conversation because I'm not just asking questions. You're feeding me a sense of a greater awakening. And I think that's what the book does. Just, it's so simple. Ask. Who would have thought of, and it's so deep because that's who we are as human beings. You don't hear your dog asking. I mean, they may be asking for food, but they don't ask the meaning of being incarnate. We're talking about incarnation and the soul embodiment, and what you said, Crystal, about just appreciating the body is so important for this time, because this is an incredible instrument that the soul is working through. So we're here to have it all. We're here to be in joy, and blessings on you both for giving us a little more.
Blessings on you, Alan, and the entire audience. And we're just sending love and great vibes to everyone.
I'm going to just put the book up again. I've been talking to Crystal and Mark Hansen. Of course, Mark has been the author of Chicken Soup of the Soul and all that. But this book, Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny, I very much recommend, because it will start to change your life in smaller ways, in little ways that can lead to a bigger destiny. So
to be continued. Thank you very much for letting us be on the show with you.
Hey, I thank you for letting me have you on the show. So yes, Alan Steinfeld for New Realities. I've been talking to some beautiful people here, Crystal, Dwyer, Hansen, Mark Victor Hansen, and we'll tune in for some more shows. Thanks for watching, and see you.